Yeah, it's really, obviously, I think a lot of Purdue, did a lot of their program. And what they've done in this league for a number of years, including this year, is really, really impressive. They've been able to maintain a certain standard of really excellence and with their running. I think they're good. I think they're they obviously, like all of us, have had some ups and downs to their season, but I think they're clearly a top 30 program. We're going to see the very best. Clearly a top 30 team in the country. We're going to see their very best tomorrow. You always see that from a really well-coached team. After a home loss, they're just a week removed from playing really, really well at Indiana in a rival game where they played exceptionally well on the road. So we're going to get their very best. They're good, they're talented, they're well coached, and I think when you look at their numbers, there's a reason why kind of the metrics for what it's worth really like this Purdue team. They do a lot of things well.
When you are evaluating them, do you look at when they score 100 points? Do you also look at when they scored 37 points? I know they seem to be as all over the place as almost anybody this season. How do you begin the process of figuring out what to focus on when you're breaking down what they do?
Well, I think you are looking at their body of work. Listen, Penn State would have beaten anybody in the country by a significant margin the other night. They just would have. They would have. They look like a legit Final Four contending team. Made just about every shot. You make 10 threes in the first half, several of which were contested. With the player like Stevens, you're probably gonna have a nice cushion there. They obviously battled back. So I think you look at the body of their work. I think it was one of those games. Like I said, they're a week and a half removed from really going, having a couple blowout wins, one at home, one on the road. So they're good.
Chris, I'm just looking. You've had like 6 rotation players injured this year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even your transfer is
Yeah.
out, and Musa didn't play a minute.
Yeah.
How has that affected practice? I mean, and it's come like almost like one guy comes back, and then
Yeah.
maybe Dwayne has his ribs, and then he gets back, and then Luther has the shoulder. I mean, that's got to be pretty disruptive.
Yeah, it's been unlike any year I've ever experienced when it comes to that. And we very much consider, DJ's situation, it's like an injury, right? And I think most people look at things now in those ways, that while it's not a physical injury, it's very similar to that. So, yeah, it's been unlike anything I've experienced. I've had years where, we've had some injuries or whatever the case, but not almost from the get-go and almost from the start. And when you include the season-ending injury to Musa, which I think certainly would have helped our practices and would have helped us in games, given when we were deep in some areas. And then Justin really being not healthy until about a month and a half ago. Never experienced anything like it. Having said that, we're kind of in survival mode right now in a lot of ways with some of that, and our guys, I think, are in a pretty good place. We are more conscious as a staff right now that we have ever been as to the wear and tear on our guys' bodies because of because of the concerns about depth and injury. So we are more in tune to that than we've ever been.
How do you guard against not feeling sorry for yourself, making excuses? I mean, sports aren't fair.
Yeah, they're not, and people all over the country have injuries, and at the end of the day, what people are gonna, look at with us, you guys are following us day to day. You know the ins and outs of our team as well as anyone. But, at the end of the day, it's kind of, did you win or did you lose? And did you perform or not? And did you make the NCAA tournament or not? And that'll be the postscript. So for us, we've not really talked about those things as a group. We really haven't. The specific, injuries and run of injuries.
Speaking of fairness issue, we talked about this before. Kayshawn last year, kind of seniors, CJ, they stepped up.
Yeah.
You don't really have those guys with your guards necessarily.
Right.
I mean, how realistic is it to get them to do what those guys did last year? How do you just talk to them? Do you fool them into thinking it? I mean,
Yeah, I
you're
think.
gonna need it, right?
Well, absolutely. You got, those guys, in particular, our sophomore guards, have to grow up, really quickly. And by grow up, I'm talking about a run of consistency that we saw with Key last year. And CJ to a certain extent, but really, like we talked about, and CJ was really good for us, but our two players that really late performed at a really high level were Key and Caleb. And Dre was good as well, but those kind of guys, you could feel them leading the way, one on the perimeter, one inside. Those guys got to grow up in their consistency, and that's the challenge for us. How can we be from one game to the next, and how do we grow and respond? I've always felt like when you get to this time of the year, the team really becomes led by your core leadership, your captains. And we'll go as those guys take us and lead us in their preparation each and every day.
Before you came in, I asked Dwayne Washington to give me one word to describe this season. He thought for about 6 or 7 seconds before he gave me an answer. I'm curious, what do you think his answer was?
It's tough to tell with Dwayne. I think it's been. I'm not ready to put a word on it. I'm not sure what he said. I have no idea.
He said fun.
Yeah, good.
But it took him a long time to think of it. Which
Yeah.
I thought was
Where you were
odd.
thinking.
Yeah.
It was odd to me that it took him a long time to think of fun.
Yeah, maybe he was thinking more of the politically correct thing to say, but Dwayne kind of speaks from his heart. I think that it has been fun for him in a lot of ways. We've had a lot of really good moments, and the really hard moments. I hope you appreciate the good moments. He's also been an important part of a lot of games, but there's no question there's been some ups and downs and some trials as a part of that. But I do think that he probably reflects on it in this moment and says, hey, we've had some good moments that we've really enjoyed.
He said he was trying to think of a bigger word so he'd sound smarter.
Yeah. Well, he's got a lot of personality to him, that's for sure.
What's your word so far?
I think it's. I don't know if I have one specific word. I think it's still. I would say 2 words: in process. I think it's still in process right now on what we're going to be and what we're going to, what we're going to look like and what's going to be determined here. I try not to reflect back on the season until the story's finally written, and stay in the moment as much as possible, because it can be overwhelming if you don't.